another episode of Hidden Stories Healed Now, where we provide opportunity for joy, for us to provide hope, and for you to know you are not alone. Today on this episode, I am honored to have with me Cheryl Thomas with me. And we're going to talk about something that is not often discussed and is mostly misunderstood. And especially from a parent's perspective, let's discuss autism. Autism is important to me because I recently learned, not too long ago, my own grandson has autism. So I'm hoping that by the time we get through this episode, that you understand you're not alone, there's hope, and we will get through this. So allow me to welcome Cheryl Thomas to the show. Welcome.
Thank you.
It is a pleasure to have you here.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, thank you. So why don't you share with our audience your story around where you are being a parent of an autistic child, which you care to share with the audience?
I discovered, my husband and I, we discovered that our son Alex has autism when he was 2.5 years old. And it was something that my best friend, who is a nanny, has been a nanny for over 30 years, and she saw some things when we had a visit out to California. She saw some things in him that she felt were just a little off. And, she said, there's some parents that wouldn't want to hear their friends say something to them about their child, but you're my best friend. I've known you for years, but I think you need to get your son diagnosed. Just get him checked out. And so, I took that from her, internalized it, came back to Atlanta. First thing I did was call a specialist. Took us 6 months to get in to see him. And one look at Alex, and he knew that Alex was autistic. He diagnosed him with PDD, which is pervasive development disorder. And we knew then through that particular diagnosis that Alex would have some sort of social and emotional challenges. In most autistic kids, autistic spectrum disorder is huge. It encompasses a lot of things from ADD, ADHD, PDD, which my son is diagnosed, Asperger's syndrome. There are so many. There's no high or low. There's no left or right. It's just in your particular child. Each child is different. For us, Alex has just a few challenges emotionally and socially. He is 15 years old, just started high school this year. He's doing wonderful. He gets great grades. He's not in a special school. He goes to regular public school. And there's just so many things I could say wonderful about him.
Well, all of our children are wonderful, and no matter what challenges they bring to the table, they all have a gift because God gave every last one of us a gift. So, I'm not surprised to hear how smart he is and that he is a great son and has progressed. But let's talk a little bit about, you had to wait 6 months. Mm-hmm. How did you deal with that 6-month period of waiting?
Well, I was a stay-at-home mom. So one of the advantages for me is that I was able to just find out everything there is to know about autism. And it didn't take long for that 6 months to go by, and all the information that I found out, I started him in therapy. Occupational therapy and speech therapy were the two main ones. He also had food therapy because he only liked to eat certain things. But after his diagnosis, I was able to learn so much more. Georgia has the Babies Can't Wait program, and that allowed us to get him in school at 36 months. The day after he turned 3 years old, he went right to school. And through that, we were able to find out much more things about him and about his diagnosis itself.
So when, they're talking to you about autism, and I know there's so many categories and there's so many ranges on the autistic scale, and you're emotionally dealing with the fact my child needs help, and where he is at that point and getting all the information. How did you get understanding for what was confusing? You know, there's so many medical terms out there. There's so many things. What was it that said to you, okay, I really understand this diagnosis and how I can truly help my child to move forward?
Therapy and the therapists around him. They taught me so much, from what actual occupational therapy means for your child and what that is going to, provide for him. The speech therapist, it's just so many different things that they help me out with.
Mm-hmm. So they tell you a little bit about what to say, how to say it, as you're teaching your child.
Well, not really what to say, but what to do.
Okay.
There are certain things that, with food therapy, for instance, he only wanted to eat certain things, and to introduce him to new foods, have to kind of challenge his mind to think that if you eat this, you can have this. Mm-hmm. The things that he really, really liked to eat versus the things that were nutritional for him. Mm-hmm. So it was one of those things where we had to kind of psych him out a little bit, but it worked out well for us.
How long did it take you to get him through that food therapy? I know
We're
that's
still going
one.
through that, Vicki. We're still going through that. My son only likes to eat chicken and spaghetti and meatballs, but I've introduced several years ago, though, like green beans and other vegetables. Mm-hmm. But he picks that one, and I'll let him have that one. Mm-hmm. So it's challenging for him, but mm-hmm. he gets it.
Yeah, I know. Even with my grandson, there's only certain things he wants to eat. He wants to stay with that. He don't want to try anything else. And his mom does a really good job of being creative, mm-hmm. With solutions. Well, he needs to have vegetables, so she makes vegetable waffles because he only likes waffles, right? Mm-hmm. Trying to do things to help him move along. And the challenge has been, well, how long do we have to deal with this? Will it evolve? And if it evolves, what will that look like? And then the same thing is, you're going through speech therapy, right? And they're learning how, especially when they don't speak a lot, they do more of repetitiveness, right? Mm-hmm. Whatever you say, they say. Mm-hmm. It's not them thinking and coming out with it themselves and actually going through that. We're going to take a station break, and when we come back, I want to talk a little bit more about the family dynamics and talk about the community around you. Okay. We're going to take a station break. We'll be right back.
Every story has a hidden element that is not often shared. Hidden Stories, Healed Now, with host Vicki Wright-Hamilton, seeks to share the hidden gems in real-life experiences. Our guests are ordinary people sharing their stories of overcoming insurmountable odds while providing hope and inspiration.
Welcome back. So I'd love to understand, we talked about learning that your son was autistic and that you're going to get help. Let's talk a little bit about the family dynamics. How did you deal with that with people who didn't understand autism? How did you deal with that with other friends, the community, etc.? Talk to me a little bit about that.
First, I had to understand it. I had to educate myself. And Doug did the same. He educated my husband passed away at about 4 years ago. I think 4 years ago.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Thank you. And that was one of the, and I'll get to that part too, because that was for his emotional state. Alex wasn't really understanding of that. He knew something was wrong with his father, but I had to understand autism myself. I had to educate myself, and that way I was able to help my family members. Other people around me. I got into some groups. That also helps to join, other groups on autism, ABA therapy, just all these different things. that helped me understand where I was going with this. And once I knew, a little bit more about it, what I needed to do for him and for him to grow, I just, went all in. And I was able to do that. My husband traveled all the time. He worked for CNN, traveled all the time. So he wasn't there. But when he did come back, he wanted to know everything I found out, wanted to know everything that I learned, wanted to, get very involved with every need he had. So that's how we were able to kind of get through. As far as my family and other people around us, I joined some great groups. My family members, they got educated themselves. They were able to, sit with him and work with him on certain things. And having a great educational system where the teachers that, they were so involved with every day of, what we had to do. And then they gave me tools for the weekend when he wasn't in school. So we were able to get through that.
Did you have any challenges with him finding friends or others accepting that didn't understand, right? That he's around other people his own age, or going to birthday parties or going to outings or anything like that. And because he's the one that's a little different, did you find any challenges with that? And if so, how did you deal with it?
Not at all. None whatsoever. A lot of his friends came from the school system. Just like when we were growing up, I remember back in school for me, I still have friends from junior high. So we find a lot of our social friends, during school. And that was one thing for him too. A lot of his friends, some of them are autistic, some of them are not. And his parties were the best. So we were able to have, big parties where we invited our family. We're from Michigan, so we don't have a lot of family here with, a lot of kids. But I got a lot of great friends with grandkids and their kids, and everyone knows, and they all accept him just like he's, and other things about Alex too. During the school year, he's able to connect with a lot of different people, and he's really smart. He is a techie, and for him, joining some social clubs in school. The technology club, he got a lot of techie friends. He took third place actually in DeKalb County's technology fair.
Oh, right.
So he programmed a robot. So there's a lot of friends that he learned in some of the school programs after school.
That's awesome. And it's great that when you find that love, that you can really, take it to the next level and move it forward. Did you find yourself having to be an advocate for your child?
Absolutely.
Let's talk about that a little bit.
Absolutely. His number one advocate. And his dad was too. He was very proud of Alex. He's had perfect attendance since first grade. He's now in ninth grade. So for all these years, but I was his number one advocate. And that started from the beginning, from finding out everything I needed to know about autism. And that's key. Once you know what his particular diagnosis is and what the challenges would be, I found out everything I needed to know, and then I worked from there. And being an advocate, I have a group of people that advocate with me, from therapists to teachers, to his mentors, and a couple family members that are also, part of my advocate team.
And what kinds of things have you had to advocate for? What does it really mean? We talk about advocating for things, and we talk about, really standing up for what you believe in. What were some of the things that you went through that you truly had to advocate for?
Education. That's the biggest. To have him in a program that fits him, a program that he can gain social skills from, which is one of the biggest challenges, social, emotional, behavior skills. And so the educational part of it was key. Also, to ensure that the healthcare needed for therapy is really expensive. So for occupational therapy to help him out socially, the speech therapy, which, they can get that in school, but outside therapy is the best. So for me, ensuring that financially we can afford it, and to get him those services. And there's all sorts of grants out there that you can get. I don't know about every state, but for Georgia, there's so many things that you can do to help in getting those services.
Can you
needed.
tell us a little bit about those grants? Is it a site we go to? Is it something that we can go look up? Is there any guidance you can give us as to where to go to begin to look to get some of that money and help?
It all depends on what county you live in. I'm not quite sure about the state of Georgia itself. There is the Katie Beckett program. I think it's called the Katie Beckett program. I'd have to look those things up, but I can provide them for you after.
Okay, that'd be awesome. I think, it's really important that we share these resources because that's, as you said, becoming educated is the hardest part, and then advocating for our children. Have you ever had to advocate your child from one school system to another
Absolutely.
when you didn't live there?
Yes. Yes. Recently.
Well, tell us a little bit about how you did that, because they always talking about you don't live in this county, you don't live in this area, you can't go to this school.
Yeah, there's some things that I can't really talk about.
Oh, okay.
But to find the right fit is important. I haven't been in a bad county, I'm just in a better county now.
Okay.
And the programs there fit him so much better than the other one did. I'm not going to knock the other one
I got you.
because those were elementary and middle school, but for high school, I needed a little bit more for my son. And every child is different. So you have to find that right fit for your kid.
Okay.
But don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to talk about your child. In our community, people don't want to talk about it. And it's okay. It's okay to talk about it. It's okay to share those things. It's nothing wrong with him. He's different. And that's it. He's unique. There's so many things. I mean, he is intelligent beyond measure.
Yes.
His very first iPhone, he reprogrammed it. It's one of those things. And robots, he's really into technology and gaming, but he also loves television.
Okay.
He knows that his mom is a photographer, his dad was in media, and I think he's looking to do that same thing because he's now starting to gravitate toward those things.
Well, that's a great testimony. We're going to take a station break, and when we come back, we're also going to see if we have a question or a comment from our audience. We'll be right back.
Every story has a hidden element that is not often shared. Hidden Stories, Healed Now, with host Vicki Wright-Hamilton, seeks to share the hidden gems in real-life experiences. Our guests are ordinary people sharing their stories of overcoming insurmountable odds while providing hope and inspiration.
Welcome back. So I want to talk to you a little bit about, you mentioned earlier that unfortunately you lost your husband, and that you had to explain this to your son. Can you talk a little bit about how you went through that as he's dealing with everything else?
Yes. My husband, Doug, he had cancer, and it sort of progressed really quickly. Alex knew that his dad was sick, and, when he would go in for treatments, every now and then I would, pick Alex up from school, and then maybe we'd go visit him just to brighten up his day while he was there. And so all along he knew that he was, something was wrong with him. But Douglas got a diagnosis that he had just a short time to live. And so for those 2 weeks, and it was 10 days actually, but he had been given 2 weeks. And we sat Alex down at that time and we told him that, Dad's cancer is not going away, and it's, just making him even more sick, and he may not be here with us much longer. And he didn't really, we didn't really know if he got that, if he knew what that meant. But we did hospice at home. Alex went to school every day. I mentioned earlier that he had perfect attendance. His dad told him that no matter what happens, I want you to remain, in school. And for him, that was important. Mm-hmm. And Alex told him, no matter what, I will go to school every single day, but I'm gonna miss you. He talks about him every now and then. So I know he's that emotional side, which you don't really get from autistic kids. You don't get any emotion. But I see him occasionally thinking about his dad. And I know he is because he's looking at his picture in his room. And, but it's really hard to know whether or not he's grasped that. You know what I mean? It's really hard to say, do you know your dad is gone? I'm not gonna ask him that, right. But I can feel it from him sometimes. And he always talks about his dad. Last night he talked about his dad. His dad was a Raider fan. The Raiders play today. And he goes, yeah, Dad's gonna be proud of my team because my team's gonna win today. So he remembers him. Just to change the subject just a little bit as far as what autistic kids can and cannot get. Alex was adopted. He was adopted when he was 3 days old. His birth mom is very much a part of our lives. And I tell him that all the time. I think he was 3 weeks old when I started really telling him, your mom gave me the greatest gift ever. And I tell him those things all the time, and he knows her. She comes to visit twice a year, and he calls her Mama A. He doesn't understand that he was adopted, but he does understand pregnancy and being how, babies come, where they come from, carried in the stomach and that sort of thing. And we tell him that. And so he gets that part but I don't know if he understands what a birth mom is, but he knows that he has two moms.
It's such a blessing because you give him someone else too, and that she is involved and that,
Absolutely.
And that he knows, and it's great for you. And the fact that your husband were allowing her to continue to be a part of the journey as you're going through. So let's see if we have a question from the audience.
Hi, my name is Cody, and my question is, what one big piece of advice would you give parents who have a child who is newly diagnosed with autism?
My advice would be, once you receive a diagnosis, don't panic. Autism has many facets. Don't panic. Find out all the information. Find out, get an early diagnosis, which, if you see any signs or if anyone tells you, like in my case, someone told me, but then get involved with finding out what that diagnosis means. And once you find out what it means, what does it mean to you and to your family? But just don't panic. I panicked. I did. But once I got over that stage, I was able to buckle down and find out what autism was. I didn't know what it was. I never had anyone in my family, my friends, no one. I knew no one that had autism. And now I know lots of wonderful people. And you will find groups that will support you and will help you out along the way. And I'm one of them.
These are stories that, somebody is facing every single day. These are things that happen that we can't predict. And when they do, having solutions and having opportunities to know there's hope. Hope is not lost, and that there are solutions out there and that you can get help. I really appreciate you, Cheryl, for coming in and talking to us and allowing us an opportunity to let our audience know that it is okay. Thank you for joining us on another episode of Hidden Stories, Healed Now. Remember, every story that you let go gives you freedom. See you next time.